Here are 5 musicians who have all claimed to hate Neil Young. We're all guilty of worshipping our favourite stars that little bit too much every now and again and giving them the grace that they might not actually deserve. Let us know what you think down below about the next 5 people and what they have to say about Neil Young. And number 1 is his old Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young bandmate David Crosby. Crosby is as uncompromising a musician as Young, so it's a wonder they made such great music while they were in the same band together. Young coming into the band was always going to change things. The 3 original members, Crosby, Stills and Nash, had a unique harmonic synergy that made their first album so appealing. But then Young comes in with a very different style of songwriting and guitar playing. It was bound to rub some of them up the wrong way, and one of them was Crosby. In 2021, Crosby told The Guardian, "Well, he's probably the most self-centered, self-obsessed, selfish person I know." He then added, "He only thinks about Neil, period. That's the only person he'll consider ever." I guess Young's selfishness is what made his time in the band so short-lived, but at the same time, it's what made his anthems so different from the rest of the band and so compelling to listen to. And number 2 is another Crosby, Stills and Nash bandmate. It was Graham Nash. Genuinely, the music this band made is one of the great anomalies of the industry. It's a wonder they got anything laid down in the studio, giving the swirling animosity that sat in the background, let alone the songs themselves sounding so beautiful. And when it was just Crosby, Stills and Nash, Graham Nash and David Crosby were already warring with each other as 2 uncompromising creatives came head to head. Then you add Young into the mix, and it's all out chaos. Ultimately, Young coming into the band is what made Nash and Crosby so much closer, and ultimately he was willing to back Crosby on his damning verdict of the Canadian, albeit his was slightly more diplomatic. Because when Nash was asked about working with Young, he said that he simply respected his willingness to adhere to artistic principles. Ultimately, that's a very polite way of calling him a pain in the arse, and it's a lot lighter than what David Crosby said about the Canadian, but at the same time, the sentiment is pretty much the same. And number 3 is Bob Dylan. For many music critics, there's an obvious parallel to be drawn between the 2 here, whether it's lyrical ingenuity or the sonic composition that started off with folk and then moved into a heavier style of rock in the 1960s. However, this is exactly where Dylan's problem with Young lies. In Dylan's eyes, Young's music is a carbon copy of his, but more inferior. It's almost like a shadow that's following him around the industry. And in referencing this point, there's one song in particular that Dylan always brings up, and that's Young's hit Heart of Gold. And Dylan cites that rousing acoustic guitar strum and that harmonica drawl as the 2 main factors that he thinks Young has ripped from him to make this song so compelling. And number 4 is Lynyrd Skynyrd. The Alabama band found themselves as unlikely sparring partners for Young as the 2 embarked on a war of words through their music in the 1970s. For Young's part, he came out blazing against the plague of racism and campaigned strongly for desegregation in his songs Southern Man and Alabama. Lynyrd Skynyrd took exception to that, and they used their seminal hit Sweet Home Alabama to take a swipe back at the Canadian. In that song, they referenced the deep south that Young was talking about in Southern Man and said that it was not to blame for the racial issues that still persisted in America. And so their lyrics, Southern Man don't need him around anyhow, was a direct reference to Neil Young, and so a fiery feud that was embroiled in wider social issues started between the pair. And at number 5 is George Harrison. The so-called quiet Beatle, in his not so usual way, stepped out of his tranquility to make his misgivings for the Canadian artist very clear, and in particular launched a scathing attack on his vocal abilities. During a 1992 recording session with Bob Geldof, Harrison lashed out at the singer's voice, declaring that, "I hate it, yeah, I can't stand it," before backtracking only slightly to make the tongue-in-cheek quip, "His singing is even worse than me." And so as Harrison wraps this up, one thing is abundantly evident. While Young's music may be loved all over the world by his legion of fans, behind the scenes he is certainly not a musician with a heart of gold.